Hey y'all, thanks for joining. This is a short video on another upgrade to my workshop table that I just built a few weeks back. I'm in the process of building out a shop where I can set up all my tools on a more permanent basis and not have stuff all over the house. And so this is just one more project on the long road to getting the perfect shop set up. It is an install of a Yost bench vise. And it came in broken, so I packaged it back up and returned it to Amazon. So unfortunately, the project I was planning to do over the weekend was put on hold until I get the new vise in. But I decided to do some work on these pieces that I previously laminated in preparation of the vise arriving. This is the piece I laminated together for my jaw, and here I am cutting some chamfers on the outside edges of that piece. I made that from a couple of scrap 2x4s and some oak pieces I took off of an old pallet. Unfortunately, when I glued it up, it got some marks on the oak from the clamps that I used. And you can see here in just a second, after I applied some paste wax to it, it looked 100 times better. But you'll see also later in the video that once I allowed it time to dry out, it went back to looking exactly like it did in this picture. Here it is with the coat of Minwax paste wax applied to it. The grain on the oak looks really nice. But like I said, you'll see later when it dried out, it went back to looking like it did before. So this is the piece I laminated that's going to go along the edge of the bench for my vise when it comes in. I'm not even 100% sure what you refer to that piece as. Finished up the jaw over there. This is a piece of the cedar that I had used for this edging, and I laminated this piece of oak from that same pallet as the other two pieces that are much redder than this. I laminated those together, but this piece of oak is slightly cupped, so I'm planing down the edges of it to try to get it nice and flush all the way across the surface of that. Well, my replacement vise came in. I ordered the Yost 10-inch instead of the 9-inch that I initially ordered because it was only $6 more for the 10-inch than it was for the 9-inch vise. So it's made pretty much the same way. The other one had different nuts on the end here. They were dome, whatever you call those dome nut things on the end of here, so it was a little more finished looking. However, this one comes with these support collets. There's two different options on how you install those. You can put it on the inside of the edge of the bench, or you can actually recess it into the inside jaw and support it there. The screw piece on this vise is about 1/4 of an inch or more bigger in diameter than the 9-inch vise that came in. But pretty happy with it. I'm gonna start taking some measurements and try to figure out how to get this thing installed. It comes with a little bit of an instruction manual, but does not have a template for laying out holes on your bench. I mean, they got a couple of diagrams here, but in a photo that you can hardly see. But so after reviewing this whole setup, I think I've decided I want to put the front edge of this plate that goes under the table even with the front edge of this 2x4. I'm still going to add a face for an inside jaw on top of that, but I'll put that plate even with this 2x4 so I can screw up into this 2x4 on the edge of the table. The spacing I need, though, I need support about 4 inches deep from this face so I can put screws on both sides of that plate. So what I've done is laminated some plywood onto this 2x4 for proper spacing. The screws will go up into this 2x4 and into the front 2x4. This just gives me the spacing I need to get that 4 inches. I got the plate clamped up where I want to screw it in. I'll put a couple screws in the back side and then remove the clamps so I can put the other screws in. Well, I've had to change my game plan a couple times on this vise installation. I needed to have a piece here against the bench coming down 7.5 inches or so, so that I could secure these things to that side of the vise face. So the piece that I had cut out and laminated and prepared ahead of time was not long enough to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and mount that as the inside face. I'll be able to put these things on that first board, and this flat edge will come right up underneath this piece. So there's my 2.5 inch jaw that I started making in advance. Ended up with a bigger vise and had to modify it a little bit. So I added a couple pieces to the bottom there to just make it extend down below where the screw goes in. And those other two bars were like right on the edge. So anyway, I added 1 inch to the bottom of it. Looks a little weird, but it's functional. Well, I got it installed. I guess I could have showed you a little bit more step by step, but wasn't a whole lot to it really once you got the pattern laid out for where the holes needed to be cut. That first board I put on there that I cut the holes in is just a 3/4 inch thick. I actually just drilled that by hand with my cordless drill. But drilling through this 2.5 inch piece obviously was a little bit more difficult. And so I used my drill press to cut those holes. Unfortunately, I had this tightened. I had the jaw closed all the way and tightened down when because I was trying to be really precise with where I wanted this top edge. When I put these screws in to hold it all together, and as soon as I backed the pressure off the screw, this edge dropped about 1/16 of an inch. So I left a little bit proud of the table so I could plane it down to where it would be flush with the table surface. And I'm hoping that this is going to still be flush on this edge. Unfortunately, it's a little bit higher on this side. There's a little bit of play in this vise, but anyway, it'll do the trick. Well, I got that top plane down. It's all nice and flush now across there. I did end up planing the top edge of this jaw a little bit to even it out, but worked out all right. This part that was a little bit low actually lined up with the table fairly well. So once I plane these pieces down, it's all nice and flush. So here's a crazy idea. I had a 13 inch piece of oak. It was actually a piece of firewood I had for my fireplace, and I cut it up and squared it off a little bit, and it was 13 inches long. Unfortunately, my lathe is not long enough for me to turn a piece that long, and I really wanted to turn the handle for that vise myself. So I got this crazy idea that I was going to turn 2 pieces about 6.5 inches long and make a knob kind of on either end, and then get a double threaded wood screw or something and put them together that way where it's screwed together in the middle. And at least I'll be able to turn my own handle. I know it's a crazy idea, but I'm gonna try it out and just see how it works out. I can always make another handle, get a dowel or something to fit in there. So here I am, turning the
half
first
handle.
half of that
Obviously,
handle on my mini lathe,
cut on that end a little bit,
and I'll
I'll
check
make
that
another one just like
diameter to see where I am.
Start out by
Continue
getting this thing
to
rounded
take off
out.
a little bit more, and get that
and then
half where I need it to
Get
be,
this little section on the end here
and
down
then
to
I'll move on to the other half.
And got a little ways to go. And then once I get this to the size I need it, I can pretty much eyeball getting it across and check occasionally. And then obviously this end will be the little knob part on the end of it. And then I'll put those two pieces together and I should be good to go. So there we go. This was my crazy plan. There's my two halves of my handle. They match pretty good. Not perfect, but they match fairly well. And they match this way pretty well. So there's my handle for my vise. I'm gonna get it put together and I'll show you what it looks like all done. Well, there's the handle I was trying to make. It's not perfectly straight. Still functions like I need it to function. And you can still put a good bit of pressure on it without any problem. I'm sorry, bad camera. So I can still tighten it up really good. If I needed to replace it at some point, I could replace it at some point. It looks a little bit funky in the middle. It didn't come out exactly like I had in my brain. Wasn't quite as simple as I thought to get it squared up and straight, but it still moves through the handle perfectly fine, and gets the job done. So it's functional, but not perfect. So I put some dogs in the top of my vise, and unfortunately I got that sucker about 1/16 of an inch off from one to the other. Anyway. And I put a first set of holes on the bench. I'll probably put a series of holes across the bench. Over a 9-inch clamping capacity just in the vise itself. So with this closed all the way, I measured this space out to be right about what the clamping capacity of the vise is, which allows me to hold the piece in here from the same width as the maximum piece in the vise, and opening the vise up to double what the space would be in the vise. So anyway, and here's an example of kind of how it works. This is just a little piece of plywood, but if I had a bigger piece of wood, I was working on a cabinet or something and I needed to do some planing and hold it down or something like that, clamp it down between the dogs. Bad camera work again, I know. So anyway, that's my first set of bench. Well, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the install of that 10-inch Yost bench vise. It is functional, obviously not perfect, and a few parts of it look a little bit funny, but I like the way it came out. I'm pretty happy with it. Now I just got to get some projects underway so I can put that thing to use and see how it works. Check back with me real soon. I'll be posting some more projects in the near future. Please give me a thumbs up. And if you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching.